What if you could play a rhythm game not with 2 keys, not with 4 keys, not even 8, but with every single key on your keyboard? So this is Mupo, a rhythm game you can play with your entire keyboard. It's already on Steam and is getting pretty close to release. I've been working on it for a long time now, and honestly, it still feels kinda unreal seeing it actually exist. It's free, and the idea is that it grows with the community. People making their own levels, experimenting and just having fun with it. But yeah, this didn't start as some big planned project or anything like that. Looking back, it's actually hard to believe how all of this started, because the truth is, this game was never meant to exist in the first place. It all started in computer science class, in the 11th grade or something. Our teacher said, "Alright everyone, today you're going to program a game using BlueJ!" And I was like, what the hell is BlueJ? Now if you don't know, consider yourself lucky. BlueJ is basically this beginner-friendly Java tool that's supposed to help you learn programming, but in reality it feels like Java wearing training wheels that you are not allowed to take off. BlueJ's weird abstraction layer makes learning feel pointless. And on top of that, we were even asked to write our code in German. Yes, it was a German school, but really, this would teach such a bad habit. Coding in German is just not it. So I turned to a classmate and said, I think I want to use processing instead. Now processing is also based on Java, but it's actually made for creative stuff. Visuals, animations, interaction. Perfect for games, perfect for learning. My classmate looked at me and said, yeah, same. So we went up to the teacher and asked if we could use processing instead of BlueJ. He completely lost it. No, absolutely not! You're going to use the tool I chose! I tried to explain that processing would make way more sense for what I wanted to build. That it's still Java, just without all the unnecessary pain. And after way too much arguing, he finally gave in. But sadly only I was allowed to use processing, because he thought only I was good enough to skip BlueJ. I mean, sure, processing is not the best tool for making games, but I think it's pretty decent for learning programming, and seriously, there are just so many better tools for learning programming than BlueJ. To my advantage, I already had some experience with processing, so I quickly made a simple version of Pong. Pong, one of the oldest games where you control one of 2 rectangles and try to bounce the ball that's not even round into the other player's side. But I didn't want it to be just Pong. I added music, visuals that reacted to the music, and a ball whose speed changed depending on the rhythm. I named the game Music Pong. Very creative, I know. But I had so much fun working on it that I just kept going. After school, I started building a small level editor to tweak visuals and experimented with different gameplay ideas. At this point, Pong was getting pretty boring, and I thought it was a cool idea to have different game modes. That's when I realized something. There were no rhythm games that used the entire keyboard. Well, that was about 5 years ago. And in the meantime, there were actually some people trying out the same idea, but more on that later. I started to incorporate such a game mode into Music Pong, and I quickly had the first prototype of the game idea that would become so much bigger as time went on. While adding new features, it finally became clear to me that processing wasn't meant for making big games. My code was already pretty long and it became super messy and unreadable. This is when I started thinking about moving to a different tool. Since processing is basically a Java wrapper, I thought, why not just switch to pure Java? Yeah, not my best idea. I tried rebuilding everything from scratch, even attempting to write my own engine at some point. I wasted a lot of time before realizing this was not the way forward. After doing some research and comparing different game engines, I came to the conclusion that Unity was the right tool for this project. So I rebuilt everything that I had already made and finally started adding new features again. At first I continued working on the Pong mode, but then I realized something important. I didn't want to make a Pong game anymore. I wanted to make a unique rhythm game built around the entire keyboard. So I completely removed Pong and focused fully on my own idea. I started working on a proper level editor, I redesigned the UI over and over again, and since I was still pretty inexperienced with Unity, I made things way harder than they needed to be. Especially the level editor. That thing caused me many sleepless nights and long breaks from the project. I actually quit the project multiple times, which is also why it took me more than 5 years to get this project to a state that I felt was presentable. And even today, the level editor still needs a lot of work. But during these breaks from the project, I didn't just sit idle. I started many different Unity projects, learning to use the engine properly. I had a lot of fun at trying out different ideas and eventually became pretty decent at using the engine productively. but somehow small moments of motivation always pulled me back into my rhythm game project. Around that time I started looking around online to see if anyone else had explored a similar idea. And yeah, turns out I wasn't completely alone anymore. I found several people experimenting with rhythm games that use more than just a few keys. Some of them had really interesting concepts, others were more like early prototypes. But it was honestly super interesting to see how different people approached the same core idea. A few days ago I even found a video of someone who had made something surprisingly close to what I had made. And all in all, it reinforced something I already knew for a long time. This kind of game design is incredibly fragile. Seeing how others approached it made that even more obvious. Small design decisions can completely change how readable or enjoyable the game feels. Some versions worked surprisingly well, while others struggled simply because the information became too overwhelming. It reminded me how easy it is to get things wrong, even when the core idea is good. Rhythm games live and die by readability. Most rhythm games intentionally limit the number of inputs, 4 keys, maybe 6 or 8, because the human brain can only process so much information at once. When you suddenly bring the entire keyboard into play, things can become unreadable extremely fast. If you don't design it carefully, players won't even know what key they are supposed to press anymore. Instead of abstract notes or random positions, I decided to represent the keyboard exactly as it exists in real life. So instead of reading letters, you're basically reacting to positions. Your muscle memory takes over. You don't think press G, you just move your finger where the key is on your real keyboard. That small decision made a massive difference. Another thing I noticed, many people were building their versions as browser games. Which makes sense, it's accessible, easy to share and quick to try. But for what I wanted to do, that approach had limits. I decided to make it a standalone game in Unity instead of a browser game. And that came with some huge advantages. First of all, performance. Running natively means direct access to the CPU, GPU and memory. That gives much more stable frame rates, better visuals and way more precise timing, which is crucial for a rhythm game. Input latency especially matters a lot. When you press a key, you want immediate feedback. In a browser, there can be a noticeable delay due to how inputs are handled. In a standalone game, that delay is significantly reduced. It also allowed me to do things that would be annoying or impossible in a browser. Cool visual effects or special features like lighting integrations that I'm still working on. Whenever you hit a note in the game, your keyboard shows a cool animation accordingly. And since it's a proper desktop game, it's easy to optimize for individual platforms like Windows, Linux and macOS. Once the core gameplay felt solid, I started thinking about online features. Things like leaderboards, user profiles and eventually even multiplayer. And that's where backend infrastructure suddenly becomes important. At first I experimented with hosting my own backend using Firebase, but after reading a lot of stories online, especially on places like Reddit, I saw how people suddenly got huge bills from Google just because of a small mistake like a loop constantly calling a cloud function. That honestly scared me a bit, because one tiny error can suddenly cost real money if you're not extremely careful. Fireship made an entire video about that topic if you want to find out more. It was stressful, expensive and honestly not worth it for a solo developer. Once I decided to release the game on Steam, all of that became unnecessary. Steam already handles accounts, authentication, achievements, leaderboards and multiplayer infrastructure. Players don't need to create new accounts or log in somewhere else, they just play using their existing Steam account. It's smoother, safer and way more comfortable for everyone involved. The game itself is built to be flexible. You're not limited to only letters. You can have number keys, arrow keys, numpad only levels or completely custom layouts. And if your keyboard doesn't use QWERTY and look like this, or maybe you're using a layout like this or something totally different, that's also accounted for, as the in-game keyboard automatically shows you the proper layouts for the keyboard you are using. I'm even considering rendering the keyboard in 3D for even better immersion in future updates. Because one idea I really love is allowing players to recreate their real keyboard inside the game. Maybe someone builds their own custom keyboard IRL, they could recreate it digitally and share it via something like the Steam Workshop. That's the kind of stuff that really excites me. And all of this is possible because the foundation is flexible and scalable. Honestly, a huge part of development was simply figuring out how to make everything feel intuitive. Where do players look? What information matters? What's distracting? What feels satisfying? It took a lot of trial and error, and yeah, a lot of struggling, but I finally feel like I found a balance where the game feels readable, responsive and fun without being overwhelming. And with that, I continued working on my rhythm game. This time seriously. A new unified UI, a better technical foundation, particle effects, a stable level editor. And since the game had nothing to do with Pong anymore, it needed a new name. That's how Mupo was born. My friends kept encouraging me to continue, and that honestly meant a lot. I still have many ideas I want to add in the future, but at some point I knew I want people to actually play this game. So I decided to announce the game on Steam. I want Mupo to be a community-driven game, a place where people can create and share their own levels. I showed the game concept to some friends and they told me the game needs a mascot, and it made sense. Almost every game has a mascot of some sort. So I designed one too. With the help of an amazing artist, by the way, go check her out, Mupo-chan came to life. When I look back, it's crazy how much this project changed. At the beginning I didn't even have a clear goal, I just followed what felt fun. Looking back at me being that 11th grade kid arguing with his teacher about Blue Jay, I never could have imagined this. Mupo didn't have a business plan, it didn't have a roadmap, I didn't even have a clear goal at the start. The game defined itself along the way. It turned from a Pong clone into a unique and fun rhythm game, because I just kept working on it. I kept following what felt cool, I hit walls, I quit, I came back and I tried again. Mupo is proof that you can build something amazing just by being creative and refusing to settle for the boring path. And that's my message to you. Just make it. Don't wait for a perfect plan, don't wait for someone's approval. If you have an idea, no matter how weird or small, start building it. Doesn't matter if it's perfect on day one. If you put your heart into it and keep tinkering, it might turn into something like Mupo. Thank you for listening to my story. And if you want to test your limits and see what your keyboard can actually do, go to Steam, search for Mupo, wishlist it, play it soon, and maybe build a map that destroys my fingers. I'll see you on the leaderboard. And hey, I'd love to hear what you think. If you have ideas or just want to share your thoughts about Mupo, drop a comment below. I read every comment and it really helps me see what the community wants. So don't be shy, your feedback could inspire the next feature.